So great, I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. If God's with the king, no matter, he'll get us the same. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes? Shit.
Good night, everyone. Welcome back to your favorite sports show, although my two guests may have something to say about that themselves, but don't worry about them. They love being here because basically they're always on here. So speaking of guys who are always here, first let's start with Steezy. We saw all your pictures from Hawaii enjoying life. How has it been, Steezy, my guy?
Man, first of all, I just want to say always a pleasure being on. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Neil. What's going on, Dwayne? Like I said before the show, Hawaii was just paradise on earth. You know, what can I say? I had a blast, had a wonderful time, you know, truly a blessing. And, you know, I just can't wait to kind of get back into work, get back to the swing of things, get back to the grind, and end off 2021 on a great note.
Well, also, this is paradise on earth for Dwayne Marcus from the G.O.A.T Talk with Marcus as well. Dwayne, how are you? I'm happy to finally get you back on.
It's been a minute. I've been ducking Justin and Steezy because every time I come on this show, it's always, or every time Justin wants me to come on, it's after one of my guys have done something bad. So at least this week, the Packers shut out the Seahawks, so I get to deflect a little bit to Steezy, and maybe I can duck some of the work. But no, it's nice to be back. It's been too long. It's been too long.
Don't worry, we'll get a couple of your guys later on the show. But we have to start with none other than what happened in New England this week. And boy, oh boy, was it a beatdown. 45-7, if memory serves me correct. Extremely huge rout of the Cleveland Browns. That, I think, is what? Fourth of four straight wins in a row. So, Steezy, I'll start with you. How good, really? Because now I think New England Patriots are 6-4. How good are these Patriots really?
They're good. They're pretty good. But I don't know if I want to take it any further than that. I'm not going to go as far as to say they're elite. You know, I know they're coming off impressive victories, like you win. They whooped the Jets a couple of weeks ago, scored 50-plus points. They smacked the Carolina Panthers. They have, you know, notable victories. They have credible victories. But I think come playoff time, I just don't know if they still match up to an elite team like, let's say, the Buffalo Bills or even the Baltimore Ravens, the Kansas City Chiefs at their very best. I just don't see them on that top tier just yet. I like what the defense is doing. Obviously, Bill Belichick, greatest head coach of all time. He's always going to keep them in the conversation. But I just think come playoff time, is their offense going to be able to just get by with just being efficient, with just doing just enough? Is that going to be enough? Because, I mean, the defense can be elite, but at the end of the day, the offense to me is just, I think at best, is mediocre. I mean, yes, Mac Jones is you know, piloting an efficient offense. Yes, they're able to run the football no matter if it's Damian Harris or Ramondre Stevenson or Brandon Bolden. They're able to do that. Their offensive line is solid, but I think their playmakers on the outside, their pass catchers, I think it's very pedestrian. And I just think come playoff time, I mean, you need playmakers, you need elite level players, especially at those positions, you know, in the playoffs. I mean, you could have elite play calling. You could have, you know, a great mind calling plays and calling the shots and, you know, bringing about all these different game plans. But at the end of the day, I don't think they have the game changers on offense to be able to match up to what their defense is doing, or even to go up against an elite high-powered team like the Bills, the Ravens, or even the Chiefs when they're at their very best. And so I say all that to say that the Patriots are good. They're pretty good, but they're not elite. Not yet.
Do you feel the same way, Dwayne, or do you think that this is the team that people have to be afraid of when it's January?
I agree with Steezy that they're not elite. I disagree with Steezy that they're pretty good. And maybe this is me over exaggerating a little bit, but you know, Justin and Steezy would tell you I tend to do that. The Patriots are like the most dangerous team in the NFL, right? You've heard some people say the AFC. No, forget the AFC. This is the most dangerous team in the NFL. They're 6-4 right now. They've scored the sixth most points in the league right now. They're 207. They've allowed the second fewest at only 177. Like this is a really good football team. You look at the specific, and I know we'll get into them in a second, but when you look at what like Mac Jones has done over 4 really important games. Now, 2 of them were losses and 2 of them wins, but in the game against Tampa Bay, Dallas, Los Angeles, and Cleveland, he in total, he's completed 83 of 119 passes for 919 yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 receptions. We look at this rookie class, and I was a victim, and I was one of the people. I shredded Mac Jones. He's the only rookie quarterback in this class to have 1 game of a pass rating of 100 or more, but he's done it 5 times. This is a really good football team coached by, as Steezy mentioned, the greatest head coach in the history of the sport. Like the formula that we've seen, and I talked about this on Saturday on my show with Guru, the formula that we saw work so well for Tom Brady and these Patriots for the last 20 years is working yet again this season. Like, we can look at last season and we can look at that as an anomaly. You know, we're talking about a football season like in a pandemic era, right? Like that's something we've never seen before. And despite that, they were still 7-9 under Cam Newton. And I came on this show not too long after that, and I came on the show earlier this season, and I told Steezy and Justin that there's going to be a point later on in the season when the Patriots are going to start to click and going to become dangerous and going to be competitive. Justin laughed at me. Steezy took a note in his notebook and said, "I don't know." We're at that point, guys. Like this is the point where the Patriots are starting to look dangerous. You look at who they have left on their schedule. They've got Atlanta, Tennessee without Derrick Henry, Buffalo twice, Indianapolis, who we all have questions about, Jacksonville, and Miami. There's no reason the Patriots can't make the playoffs. And I'll take it a step further. There's no reason the Patriots can't even win the division. Like when it's all said and done, when you consider the fact they have 2 games against Buffalo, and the Buffalo, as great as Josh Allen is, Stephon Diggs kind of been off this season. They still don't really have a running game. I'm still not that sold on the defense, because the only good team that they played this season as pertains to this season standards is the Titans, and they lost that game down on the Chiefs. But we all know this isn't the Chiefs that we've been accustomed to seeing the last couple of seasons. So right now, the Patriots aren't just pretty good. The Patriots are very good, and they're the most dangerous team in the NFL, and don't be surprised if the Patriots make a run for it this season.
I will lie somewhere in the middle. You know, I'm trying to ease off of my hot takes now, because I swear to you, I don't know football anymore. I'll say this. That Patriots defense is elite. That is for sure. Because when you have looked at the competition they've faced, they made Tom Brady look mortal. They made Justin Herbert look mortal. The only quarterback of note that has actually performed against his defense was Dak Prescott, and that was earlier in the season.
Justin.
No, go ahead. Pardon me?
Davis Mills had a 300-yard, 3-touchdown game. And the Texans almost beat the Patriots. And we all know about how Bill Belichick loves to terrorize rookie quarterbacks. Well, that Davis Mills game came out of nowhere. I mean, like Dwayne mentioned, I mean, such a thing could be an anomaly, but it happened.
You almost wrecked my point here, but at least I have stats to back me up, so I'm going to get to my stats shortly. They lost to the Cowboys in overtime, pushed Tom Brady to the limit in a game that Tom Brady himself felt all the pressure in the world to win. Have a win over the Chargers and now the Browns, 2 teams who we all expected to compete for the AFC in these playoffs. So, Steezy, you tried to wreck my point about this defense, but I have stats. Opposing quarterbacks are not completing even 60% of their passes against this defense. Wow. They have a quarterback, not QBR, but quarterback rating of 75.7, which is second worst in the league, only behind Buffalo. They have the second most interceptions in the league at 14. And I'm going to add a point. This team is a Damon Harris fumble against Miami, away from being the division leaders in the AFC East. Just think about that for a second. Yep. And to Dwayne's point, they have still 2 games against Buffalo to make up. So at least they can tell themselves, if we're going to win the division, we're not going to sneak and fluke and win this division. We're going to win this division, if we do, by beating Buffalo. And to Dwayne's point again, Buffalo, when I look through the record today, the only real win of note, as Dwayne correctly mentioned, is against Tennessee. My question marks. I have my question marks. Buffalo defense is also elite, but I have my question marks with that, you know, very, very, very lopsided, that one-dimensional offense. like Steezy, I have question marks about their playmakers on the outside or lack thereof. The only real playmaker I really trust is Hunter Henry out of the lock. Like, I'm not a fan of Kendrick Bourne. I'm not a fan of Nelson Aguilar. That being said, right, I'm going to say that this team is good. This team will definitely make the playoffs because when you look at their formula, they play great defense, they run the football, and they don't turn it over. Like, what does that sound like? The New England teams of old behind Tom Brady. I'm not telling you that Matt Jones is Tom Brady, but we're going to get to that right now. And I know Dwayne is licking his chops at this, so let's get to that next segment right now, Dwayne. We have seen this Patriots team rattle off 4 straight wins with a rookie quarterback. Is it fair to say right now that McCorkle Matt Jones is the real deal?
Mac Jones is more than the real deal. And I don't know if it's because I've done a lot of things in my personal life that have been a little over the edge. I'm feeling a little bit on the edge today. And maybe it's because it's my first show back. But I've been taking notes since you sent me the topics. And I think everything I'm going to say on the show, you're going to look at me like I'm crazy because it's probably going to be a hot take. Here's another one for you. And I want you guys to take this with a grain of salt and just listen to me for a second. We all know that Tom Brady...
Can I take it with a glass of water?
You can take it with a glass of water, a glass of wine. You can hula dance with Steezy, if you'd like. We all know how great Brady is, and there's no debating that Tom Brady is undeniably the greatest quarterback the world has ever seen. And I'm going to do this sparingly because I don't want people. I'm not really concerned about my black card. I'm more concerned about my football card. I don't need people trying to take my football card when I say this. But if you look at where Tom Brady was when he first began with the New England Patriots, and you look at where Mac Jones is now in his first season with the New England Patriots, if you just compare their first full seasons together to this point, Mac Jones is doing just as good, if not arguably better, than Tom Brady did in his first season with New England. And I mean, and you can look at the stats and prove it. Now, I'm not going to ramble down the stats because Guru has consistently accused me and ridiculed me for being an analytics guy. So I'm going to try not to be an analytics guy tonight. But Mac Jones is playing really, really well, right? And when you look at the other 4 quarterbacks that were drafted in this draft, like look at Trey Lance, who hasn't really gotten much play time because there's Jimmy G and then also injuries. When you look at Justin Fields, who's finally seeming like he's coming into his own in Chicago, but I'm not really going to put a lot of the blame on him because he has one of the most incompetent coaches in the league in Matt Nagy calling his plays for him. When you look at who else is out there? When you look at what Trevor Lawrence is doing in Jacksonville, we know it's going to be a while before Trevor Lawrence even starts looking like a glimpse of what he was in college as it pertains to success and dominance. And then even when you look at what Zach Wilson is doing in New York, although he's injured right now, but they're in the same division, there is not one game left on this schedule where I look when I look at Mac Jones and I say he can't outduel the other quarterback. When I look at Mac Jones against Matt Ryan, Mac Jones is going to outplay Matt Ryan against Atlanta. Mac Jones is going to outplay Tennessee, outplay Ryan Tannehill when they play Tennessee. He's going to outplay Carson Wentz. He's going to outplay Trevor Lawrence, who I just mentioned. And he's going to outplay Tua Tagovailoa or Jacoby Brissett or whoever the starting quarterback is for the Miami Dolphins come week 18, because I don't even know if the Miami Dolphins know who their starting quarterback is right now. The only 2 games where I question Mac Jones' ability to outduel his opposing quarterback is against Josh Allen in the 2 games against Buffalo. But if you look at the 4 games that I mentioned at the top of the show, he outplayed Tom Brady in Tom Brady's first game back in New England. Up until the second half when the Dallas Cowboys were coming back, he outplayed Dak Prescott in the first half of that football game when they were up big. He outplayed Justin Herbert against the Chargers, although he didn't throw a touchdown. And we just saw him outplay Baker Mayfield this past week, even though Baker Mayfield did leave the game with an injury. What can't this kid do? Now, I've been eating a lot of crow this season because Baker Mayfield hasn't been panning out and Sam Darnold hasn't really been that great this season. And I've also got to deal with family and friends who are Cowboys fans who I'm not going to address tonight, but I will address at some point this week because blowing out the Falcons means nothing to me, but we can get into that another time. Mac Jones, I think, is absolutely the real deal. And I think if there's any threat to Jamar Chase in winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year, it's Mac Jones. And with this resume, Mac Jones, in my opinion, is undoubtedly the Offensive Rookie of the Year this season. The proof is in the pudding.
Are you as high on Mac Jones, Steezy, or are you going to come down a little bit back to earth? No?
I'm going to come down just a little bit, but I do like a lot of the points that Dwayne is bringing up. I mean, I can't really dispute, a lot of that. Like he said, proof is in the pudding. I mean, they're 6-4. They have a chance to win the AFC East. Mac Jones has outplayed all these guys. I can't dispute none of that. I guess the only thing I could really point to is just my own eye test. And, do I see him as the real deal? I guess I could also say, yeah. I'm just not going to be so kind as to bring up all those different stats and, different things that kind of lift him up. I do agree with a lot of things that Dwayne said. I mean, Tom Brady was very just pedestrian, when he started out, and no one really talks about that. Obviously, when we talk about the most talented quarterbacks of all time, I don't think any of us is going to say that Tom Brady's the most talented, but part of what goes into being the greatest is not just talent, but also what you've accomplished, resume, accolades, and all that stuff. And so Mac Jones, I mean, he definitely fits that mold. He's in the perfect system. I mean, he has, like we talked about, the best head coach of all time. He has an offensive mastermind in Josh McDaniels. He has a running game. He has a competent offensive line. He has an elite defense. What doesn't he have? Really just playmakers. Once you give him playmakers, then we can really, I guess, kind of look at his potential and see what he could eventually become as a quarterback. But for right now, I mean, if we're just comparing him to his peers, he has to be the real deal. I mean, I don't think anyone saw Mac Jones competing for Offensive Rookie of the Year. And I'm not going to go as far as to say if it's not Jamar, it's Mac, just because I think Najee Harris is playing a huge and pivotal role to what the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing this season. Let's say the Steelers make the playoffs. Najee Harris deserves a lot of credit for what he's doing over there. And so, yes, I'm going to go as far as to say that he's a real deal, but I'm not going to get any higher than that.
So here's the first of two apologies I have to issue tonight. And the first is to none other than McCorkle Jones. And Neil put this in a single shot because they need to do this. I apologize to you. I apologize to all of the Alabama faithful for not believing in what everyone out of Alabama who has coached, played with, or had anything to do with McCorkle Jones. I did not hear it. I stupidly believed in all the pundits and all these draft nicks who think they know football, and that's why I'm saying now I don't know football. So quickly, yes, I apologize to McCorkle Jones. I apologize to Alabama. I apologize to Nick Saban. So let me rattle off the easy stats first. We all know what he's 13 touchdowns to just 7 interceptions, and his completion percentage of 69 is on pace to break Dak Prescott's rookie record of 67.8 or 67.7, if memory serves me right. Dwayne touched on the fact that he's already outdueled Tom Brady and Justin Herbert, who we are all, hailing as the next great coming. But as, Dwayne mentioned, Guru would accuse us of just talking about stats. So let's forget stats. Let's get to the eye test. And I knew this already before, but I said I'm going to watch the game against Cleveland to already, to solidify what I already know. And the tape did not lie. I watched this kid put players in motion just for the sake of identifying whether the defense was in man or in zone. I watched this kid use hard counts or what they would call dummy cadences just to identify where the blitzes was coming from or if they were going to follow. I watched this kid use his eyes and shoulders to move linebackers and safeties out of spots that he knew he wanted to throw them. And I watched this kid put the ball where it needed to almost each and every time against Cleveland to the point he was 19 of 23 for 3 touchdowns. This kid, the only thing that was right about Mac Jones was saying he should not have been drafted number 3 overall by San Francisco. That still stands true. He should have been drafted number 2 to the New York Jets. At the very worst, Mac Jones is the second best quarterback in this class, and I will continually say that for as long as I watch Mac Jones. And it was so stupid to listen to all these draft nicks and everyone else who claim they understand quarterback play. And you know why? We overlooked all this stuff, or we were hyping up the fact of big arm talent, the ability to run and extend plays because, the defensive players are so much bigger, faster, stronger. So no longer is that a luxury, it's a necessity. That is utter BS. The 2 most important points of quarterback play are the things that we kept saying about Mac Jones coming out of the draft. And if we knew that, then we should have known that the very worst, he's the second best quarterback. What did we always see? Mac Jones has the ability to process information quickly, and he knows where to put the football. If you look through every single great quarterback, that's everyone in the history of mankind. That's all they do. Tom Brady to Peyton Manning to Drew Brees to Aaron Rodgers to John Elway. All of them process information quickly and know where to go with the football. And that game against Cleveland, it's not the only game I've seen so far, but it was a game that solidified to me. Mac Jones is the second best quarterback in this draft. And it's not even close. He is better than what I've seen out of Zach Wilson and Justin Fields. And I do not know why, for the life of me, I was so stupid as to sit down and believe that having a cannon of an arm or the ability to extend plays was what is important, when you know all along that your ability to process information and to put the ball where it needs to be is the most important traits of any quarterback. I don't know football and am willing to. You seem like you need to say something here, Steezy.
Yeah, no, I just I'm curious. So if Mac Jones was in the same position as Zach Wilson, do you think Mac Jones would be doing what he's doing in New England, in New York?
No.
I will say, and Dwayne brings this up a lot, destination and coaching have a lot to do with development, especially with young quarterbacks. So Mac Jones is in the prime position. Like, a lot of that has to do with coaching, and not just Bill Belichick, but obviously Josh McDaniels. But the mistakes and the turnovers that we're seeing for Zach Wilson, I can assure you, we are not going to see from Mac Jones. And the reason I know this are twofold. I kind of got the sense that we all made a mistake from Mac Jones or about Mac Jones the moment Bill Belichick drafted him. Because when have we ever seen Bill Belichick take a quarterback in the first round? Like, never. He doesn't do that. And he was going to get the best information or the right information possible because we know how close he is with Nick Saban. And the moment he drafted Mac Jones, it's like, uh-oh, something's up here. He knows he has something. And the second point to why I knew he would be okay in New York if he went there, you hear the Alabama players talk about it. The rumors were coming out that, and I mean, he has played with the same skill position players that Tua played before him. Najee Harris, he played with Jalen Waddle, and he played with Devontae Smith. And apparently the rumor going around is that all of them have said he is a far better quarterback than Tua Tagovailoa. They all prefer to play with him. So his success here on the field should not have come as a surprise to any of us. And I am really angry with myself, right, for allowing people to tell me that physical traits are more important at the quarterback position than what goes on up here. Dwayne, is there anything else you'd like to add before we segue into the best topic of the night?
Well, here's what I'll say, right? I'm not going to beat up on myself a little bit because I think I can say this, and Justin can take it as the joke that it is. I think, unlike Justin, I'm not easily swayed by the opinions of other people, or else I would be crapping on Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold just like he does. I don't do that. I look at stats. I look at facts. And here's the fact of the matter. When you go to Alabama, what we see from Alabama quarterbacks in Alabama is what we get. Everything we've seen from Jalen Hurts so far in his career is what we saw when he was in Alabama. Nothing's going to change. What we saw from Tua Tagovailoa when he was in Alabama is what we're seeing right now in Miami. We're not getting anything different. What we've seen in Mac Jones in Alabama is what we're seeing right now in New England. The difference, I think, between each of these three guys is, number one, Jalen Hurts is the quarterback of a dumpster franchise. Tua is the quarterback of a garbage can franchise. Like, they're not quite a dumpster, but they're not like table food. They're like they're the trash. When you look at Mac Jones, and I say this all the time, and Justin said it correctly, right? Context matters. I don't see Mac Jones being successful in any of these other. Like, if we redo the draft and mix them up and do this, I don't see Mac Jones having the success in San Francisco. I don't see Mac Jones having the success in Jacksonville or New York or Chicago. I don't. Mac Jones fits in this system because this is the only system in the NFL that mirrors to a T, really, the system that he was in Alabama. The only difference is, as Steezy said earlier, this team is just bereft of weapons. I don't see Zach Wilson on this New England Patriots team doing what Mac Jones is doing. I don't see Trevor Lawrence. Well, I don't see Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields or Trey Lance coming on this New England Patriots team and leading this team to a 6-4 record, outplaying Tom Brady, Dak Prescott, Baker Mayfield, and Justin Herbert along the way. The one thing I will say, and this is something that we've all heard before, and this is something that we know all the time, right? A lot of times in sports, we get distracted with the Lamar Jacksons and the Josh Allens and the Patrick Mahomes of the world. We forget that there are people like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and Drew Brees and even to a degree of Phillip Rivers that just they're not going to kill you with their legs. They're going to do things the way that they were done back when the game first started, and it's going to work. Right now, does Mac Jones have the arm talent that Aaron Rodgers has? Not really, but he's got the accuracy that Drew Brees has. He can process information the way that Tom Brady can. He can do all of the little things, all of the things that really, really matter that Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and all these other guys can do. He just can't do it with his legs. And Justin's right. We have been spoiled as football fans by Pat Mahomes and Dak Prescott and Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray that we think that now every great quarterback has to be able to kill you with your legs. And we forgot that there's a guy by the name of Tom Brady that's going to be in the Hall of Fame the second he hangs up his cleats that just reached 1,000 career yards like 2 seasons ago. And he has 6 Super Bowls to his name. Well, 7 now. We forget about a guy like a Peyton Manning who he was a 2-time Super Bowl champion and a multiple-time MVP. He didn't kill people with his legs. We forget about the John Elways and the Dan Marinos and all these other guys, all these great quarterbacks, Hall of Fame quarterbacks that didn't do it with their legs. So I'm not going to apologize to Mac Jones or Nick Saban or Alabama fans or Bill Belichick or any of these guys. I don't think it's that serious. What I am going to do is I am going to apologize to Adam, who told me a couple months ago that I was wrong about Mac Jones and that I wasn't giving him credit. I apologize to him. I apologize to Guru, the analytics guy, because sometimes analytics guys are wrong. And I was wrong about Mac Jones. I was wrong about Mac Jones. And that's okay because Mac Jones fell into the lap of Bill Belichick. And like Justin said, when have we ever seen Bill Belichick draft a quarterback in the first round? He didn't even draft Tom Brady in the first round. He was picked 199. This is the highest drafted quarterback of the Bill Belichick era. That has to mean something. And we ignored it because he wasn't a shiny new toy.
So, well, from Tom Brady's old team to Tom Brady's current team, one team is going in the right direction and the other is not. And I am talking about none other than the current Super Bowl champs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have lost 2 in a row. The last one being a very disheartening loss to the Washington football team. So, Steezy, going to you, what is wrong with these Buccaneers?
Honestly, I don't think too much is wrong with them. I just think that right now they're dealing with a plethora of injuries. You talk about Antonio Brown didn't play, Rob Gronkowski didn't play, Richard Sherman didn't play. They're still missing a lot of guys in the secondary. And so I'm not super worried. One thing that I think a Super Bowl champion earns throughout the course of the next season is the benefit of the doubt. And I know they're in a mini slump right now, but they haven't been playing at full strength. And you might say that, but even without a Gronk or AB, they should still have enough weapons to be able to get through. But I just think that with, the type of scheme that they're running, with the type of offense that they have, they need as many of those playmakers there as possible. And so when you have, 2 starters out, that hurts them. It hurts them a lot more than it would other football teams, even though they have a Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. And obviously the secondary has been in disarray the entire season, but they've been dealing with injuries since the beginning of the season in the secondary anyway. And so I think they'll get past it. I'm not at all worried. I know the Washington football team isn't a very good team, but, that team has been reeling all year long, and, they still have some sort of fight in them, especially as it pertains to the NFC East divisional playoff picture. And so it was definitely a great win by them. They weren't playing at home, but I'm not at all worried. I think that this is just a little blip on the once they start getting their guys back. Tampa should be up there as one of the top 2, top 3 teams in the NFC.
Same question, Dwayne. What's going on with Tampa Bay, or should we not be concerned at all?
I think the issue with Tampa Bay is the same issue that we all identified in week 1, is that they lack specifically in their secondary, right? There's just no depth there. And that's really the issue. I think that, and I said this before the season, I thought that this was going to be a win for Washington at the beginning of the season. I had that mindset going into yesterday, despite the fact that they didn't really have a quarterback. That's because when you looked at how Washington matched up with Tampa Bay in the postseason last season, I mean, that's a really good matchup. Now, the defense hasn't been that great this season. This has been one of the worst secondaries. Chase Young has not at all been the monster among men that he was last season, and neither has Montez Sweat really. But we all knew, like, Washington was going to go into this game, and they really wanted this one. They got it. They were coming off a bye. So, like, there was the extra preparation, all that stuff. So I look at this as a trap game, as an anomaly. I do think that the one concern I have that extends beyond this isn't so much about this game itself, but when you look at the other teams in the NFC that are likely going to be in the playoffs, like Green Bay Packers or Los Angeles Rams now with OBJ, which I know we'll get into in a moment, the potential threat of the Carolina Panthers, even a team, like the Seahawks, who could crawl their way into the playoffs somehow because there are teams ahead of them that are just hot garbage. When you look at it from that perspective, the one concern I have is the score was, what was the score? 29-19, right? 29-19. There was the Washington football team could have scored 40 points in this game. That's not an exaggeration. If you look at the first interception, right? The very first interception that was thrown out when Tom Brady threw the ball, I don't remember who the intended target was, but it popped up and it was intercepted. The WFT, they settled for 3. And then they did it again and they scored. And then there was like another possession somewhere in there between the end of the second quarter and like the midway through the third quarter, where like they were there, but they just kept getting sacked, right? They just couldn't get the ball into the end zone. This game could have been a lot worse than it actually ended up being for Tampa Bay. And the one thing I take away from it isn't so much, it's not a concern, but what it is if the Washington football team can flirt with 40 points, the Packers can, the Seahawks can, the Rams can, the Cardinals can. This has been a mediocre defense all season against the run and the pass. All of these teams can throw the football. The Packers and the Cardinals are very good at running the football. The Rams, if they game plan appropriately, can run the football on you. We know this was not on purpose. The Cowboys can run and pass the football on you as well. And if they try, the Seahawks can too. But there's a lot of inconsistency in that backfield. But we all know Russell Wilson can go for 400, 450, and 5 any day of the week. He can do it in his sleep. That's the only concern I have. It's not so much about the game itself. The injuries and the lack of depth specifically in those areas that they're injured is really concerning, because we saw week 1. If Dak Prescott can do it, and if Taylor Heineke can almost mimic it, anybody can do it.
I won't go much further. I agree with both of you. Other than to add, my concern is not on offense. Like, there's just too much talent on that side of the ball. They'll figure it out. As you said, that first interception was a fluke. That's on the receiver more so than anything. My concern is that defensive backfield. And obviously, I think they're top 3 corners are all injured, including Richard Sherman. Like, not only the defensive backfield, right? Because their secondary has always been bad. It's just that their front 7 makes up for it. And the issue is their front 7 is still elite at stopping the run. It's just that they're not getting after quarterbacks anymore. And I think Marcus Spears today on NFL Live was showing some play designs where Vita Vea was dropping back in coverage. And I don't know for the life of me why anyone would do that. Because that defense became elite the moment that Vita Vea returned from injury last season. And as Marcus Spears correctly says, there's no pressure like getting pressure directly up the middle. If you have edge rushers, you can just step up and avoid them. But when you get pressure right up the middle, that is so hard to navigate and deal with. So it is concerning that you'd have Vita Vea drop back in coverage on certain plays. And it's concerning that you're not getting consistent pass rush because your secondary is already bad as it is. And you really don't want to be giving quarterbacks time. And to make the point, I'm very stat-based tonight. I think opposing quarterbacks against this Tampa Bay secondary is completing 70% of their passes. And, well, you don't want Taylor Heineke doing that. I think to close up that game, because it was a one-score game for most of it in the fourth quarter, and the Washington football team, hear what I'm about to tell you guys, closed out that game on a 10-minute drive. I'm not exaggerating it, 10 minutes on a drive to close out that game. And as Dwayne alluded to, if Taylor Heineke is doing that to you, then imagine what happens when you get to the playoffs and you're seeing Aaron Rodgers at Prescott. I don't know if that's a formula for success. I would think that Todd Bowles is smart enough to know that he needs Vita Vea to push that defensive line and not having drop back in coverage and need to get after the passer. But I will say this, you can't continually allow quarterbacks to convert 70% of their passes and hope to win games. That is not today's NFL. That will get you beat time in and time out. So as we transition from one bad defense to a surprisingly good one, and I'm going to start with you again, Steezy. How good, and I mean, I'm sorry to have to ask you because you got a view firsthand this weekend. But in your estimation, how good is this Packers defense right now?
Man, this defense is elite. I mean, I think I saw a stat this morning that showed that the Packers defense in the last 3 weeks against Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, and Kyler Murray have only allowed 34 points. And so that's an average of just a little over 10 for each of these top 3, top 5, top 7-ish quarterbacks. And they've been doing this without, you guys have been doing this without your best cover guy, Jair Alexander. You guys have been doing this without your best pass rusher, Zadarius Smith. Whitney Merciless is now out for the season. Jalen Smith was recently released. And then Devondre Campbell, who you guys signed, I think from the Browns or the Cardinals. I'm not exactly sure which team, but he's been a revelation. I mean, my gosh, he was an afterthought. I think when initially signed, he was kind of an afterthought. People were like, oh, he's, so injury prone. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. We don't know what he's capable of. And here he is as, the captain of that defense with Sean Gary, stepping it up, getting pressure both inside and outside, also contributing to the run. Kenny Clark, he's always been a very disruptive force, and I think that he's been a player that's been long underrated, never really talked about. So I think those guys have definitely picked up the slack. Eric Stokes, you guys' rookie cornerback. Douglas, he's been stepping it up in the secondary. Adrian Amos has always been, a top 10-ish type of guy at safety. And so it's tough for me to say, but I think that right now the Green Bay Packers have to be the favorite. And a huge part of that goes out to their defense. I mean, you guys have that victory over the Cardinals without a Devontae Adams. You guys were able to shut out my Seahawks, and then you guys didn't even have Aaron Jones for about half the game. And A.J. Dillon, he's going to be a problem there. Actually, I hate to say this as well, but I wish you guys would have signed OBJ just because I was, I'm not – obviously Seattle's not going to win the Super Bowl, and so I got to kind of root for another team. And while I'd hate to root for a rival in Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, I'd rather see the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers than the LA Rams, more so than anything. And so I just wished you guys would have been more aggressive. I wished you guys would have offered more than the veteran minimum for OBJ. Seeing as how this is Aaron Rodgers last year, I mean, I'd assume that they'd be willing to put all the chips on the table, but I guess you guys instead were willing to settle for Randall Cobb. I don't know, but that defense – going back to that defense, I mean, it's been very elite. You hold Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson to 34 points. I mean, I think that is very, very, very telling. It's scary. It's a scary sight. And I just hope that Aaron Rodgers can kind of bounce back. I know he kind of struggled against us. But if that defense is going to continue playing like that, I don't think Aaron Rodgers will have to play like he did last year in order for you guys to make a deep playoff run.
Well, it's also your Packers, Dwayne. I know you must have been lick your lips at this question. Is this a championship level defense that we're seeing right now in Green Bay?
I wish I could come on here and lament about this defense. Be like, yeah, this is great. But it's not. This is the same defense we've been looking at for the past couple of seasons. Right now, again, I'm a big context guy, and being a context guy, it's hard to put things into context when it goes against what you believe in my core. And in my core, I want to be about this defense. I want to be all rowdy and get real aggressive and all that stuff. And I can't, because for all the reasons that Steezy's mentioned, half of the most important players on the defense are injured. There's no Jair Alexander. There is no Zadarius Smith. A lot of these guys are injured. And as excited as Kevin King was to get an interception on Sunday, Kevin King has done nothing for this defense outside of that in a long time. Like, he got burnt several times last year in the NFC Championship game. I don't care about an interception on Russell Wilson. And, like, this is not a playoff defense, and it hasn't been a playoff defense for the last 2 years under Matt LaFleur. And that has nothing to do with Matt, because Matt doesn't call the shots defensively. He calls the shots on the offense. But it's nice that, you know, you shut out Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, but, like, it was Russell Wilson's first game back from an injury. That takes some time. Like, there was obviously some rust. I was more confused as to how it was 3-0 for 75% of the game. That's the part that was throwing me off. And that had a lot more to do with the rustiness of the quarterbacks than it did with the defenses. Like we can all agree both quarterbacks made questionable decisions over the course of the game that they wouldn't normally make. And so it's as great as it is to shut out a conference opponent and a conference rival in the Seattle Seahawks, that every other time, with an exception of one time, where every time that the home team is, every time these two teams are playing, the home team is played, except for the one time when the refs, whether we had backup officials and they said that Golden Tate caught the Hail Mary when he clearly didn't. I don't know. I'm not ready to say this is a championship defense. I'm not ready to say that this is even an elite defense. I think this is the same Packer defense we've been seeing all season. I mean, this is a defense that shows flashes towards the end of the season. I mean, we looked at this Packer defense at the end of last season in that snowy game against Tennessee, when we pretty much shut down Derrick Henry, and we're like, oh my God, this is championship defense, similar to what we're doing right now. And then we got into the playoffs, and the defense could barely stop a cold. So I don't know. I just don't know. I'm not sold, you know. And if I have to be consistent and say that I'm not sold on the Cowboys because they've done nothing for us for the last 25 years, I have to be consistent and say that this defense hasn't been consistent and hasn't done anything for us in the last 2 years for me to think that now all of a sudden this is a championship level defense. And I'm with you, Steezy, 100%. And I tried to get Justin angry with me, and he just wouldn't do it. I'm absolutely upset that we didn't get OBJ. But Justin was like, Wisconsin. No, you're supposed to be angry, bro. The vet minimum, man. Damn. It's disrespectful.
Well, as I was explaining to Dwayne, when it comes, oh, you're saying, sorry, I having connection issues. Are you still going on, Dwayne?
No.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm having some connection issues, so let me apologize for any lag on my end. As it comes to OBJ, let me quickly address that situation. The reality is the Green Bay Packers, no matter what they do in terms of free agents, historically, free agents just don't come to Lambeau. And it's not like, I don't think it had anything to do with money. We have to remember that football players are human beings first. And Wisconsin is never going to be able to compete with LA. Just look at every single major free agent that the Packers are supposedly in line for. OBJ chose LA over Green Bay. Also, a situation, Deshaun Jackson chose Las Vegas over Green Bay. Even J.J. Watt, who is from Wisconsin, chose Arizona over Green Bay. It's going to happen time and time again. And Dwayne may be too young to understand, but since the history of free agency, there have only been two major free agents that have come willingly to Green Bay. Yeah. And that was the great Reggie White and Charles Woodson. And Charles Woodson only came because no one else offered him anything at all. People thought he was done. People just are not going to choose. So I don't think it's a lack of Green Bay being aggressive, more so than OBJ taking the lights and the nightlife of LA over the fact that outside of football, Wisconsin doesn't really have a lot to offer these players. And that's the reality situation. So the actual question now about the defense. Again, I will light in the middle. I don't know if it's a championship defense because I'll explain one point. What we have seen is that this defense has been elite against the pass. That much is clear. To what Steezy brought up, Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, and then Russell Wilson, I think they had a combined 1 total touchdown, 4 interceptions, and a completion percentage below 60. That's obviously elite. We are holding quarterbacks, I think, to the 3rd lowest QBR and quarterback rating of the entire league. They are I think also have the third lowest or second lowest yards per attempt or yards per completion in the pass. Devondre Campbell has been a godsend, and you saw his impact as a spike, as that lone inside the middle linebacker, both against Kyler Murray and against Russell Wilson. Two quarterbacks who love to make their living outside the pocket. He was able to spike and keep them inside the pocket and keep them contained. Steezy spoke about, Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage have been great. And what's been spectacular about it is that all of this is coming without our best cover corner, and arguably the league's best cover corner in Jair Alexander. So what's happened because of that, we're playing a lot of cover two. That Tampa 2 where he played too high safety and, give your cornerbacks a lot of help. And that's, allowed Kevin King and Rasul Douglas to do what they do, press up a lot closer because they know that they have help over the top. My concern is, the defensive stats, I think, since playing Washington, because to start the season, we were poor. We were going in the red zone against us. I think we were giving up at one point 15 touchdowns and 15 red zone visits. After that, that's been corrected. My concern is the teams that we all mentioned. All of those are passing teams. These are not rushing teams. The Cardinals, the Chiefs, also the Seattle Seahawks. None of these you're going to come. You're not going to confuse these teams for a good rushing attacks. I'm going to hedge my bet a little bit and reserve judgment for when we play this Sunday in Minnesota and how we fare against the run. And that will tell me how good this defense is. But the second of my two apologies will come right now against Joe Barry because, when we were struggling through the first 3 or 4 weeks, I had a lot to say about Joe Barry. I obviously have to apologize because since, I want to say week 5 or week 6, we've been 11 points per game. And even when Rodgers was not playing against the Kansas City Chiefs, had we had a decent special teams, we would likely be up in that game because we missed a field goal, got a field goal block, and then had a mishap with fielding a punt that led directly to 3 easy points for Kansas City. And that's a game at which Kansas City won 13-7. So do the math, that's a 9-point swing there, and that game may be a lot different. I will say the defense is a lot better than they expected, especially as Steve correctly mentioned, we're missing 2 all-pro players in Jair Alexander and Zadarius Smith. I am not as cynical as Dwayne, however, because those players have to come back. They're not out for the rest of the season. They're coming back at some point. And if you add those players to that defense, then sky's the limit. But I will reserve judgment until I see us play Minnesota on Sunday and teams who are more inclined to run football. Staying within the NFC, and you all mentioned it just now, and I made mention of it. We all know now OBJ, he's going to make his Monday night debut with the Rams, or he's already currently making his Monday night debut with the Rams as we speak. So, Dwayne, this time I'm starting with you. Does the acquisition of Odell Beckham Jr. put the Los Angeles Rams over the top?
Prior to Robert Woods' ACL tear, puts the Rams over the top. Because if Robert Woods is there, you have a third weapon. Now that OBJ is going to clearly be the number 2 receiver, I'm not sure what that means right now. That doesn't make a lot of sense. You would think that's counterintuitive. Well, let me explain. We already know who Cooper Kupp is. Cooper Kupp is the runaway favorite for Offensive Player of the Year. He's leading the league in receptions, targets, yards, and touchdowns right now for wide receiver. Robert Woods, though, wasn't far behind. If I'm not mistaken, Robert Woods had like 45 receptions for a little over, somewhere between 500 to 600 yards, and he had 10 touchdowns. He had like 5 touchdowns. OBJ right now this season, since week 3 when he came back from injury, has 17 catches for like 200 some odd yards and no touchdowns. People now know, now that Robert Woods is gone, that OBJ is going to be heavily involved in the lineup, right? Like if OBJ was still the number 3 receiver, because maybe I'm crazy. I was in the mindset that as long as Robert Woods was there, he would still be number 3. He still wouldn't be he'd be on the field, obviously, but I don't know, his target share wouldn't be that great. Now that people know that his target share is going to be much larger, as if he is the number 2 receiver on the team, he was going to be able to game plan for that. And when you have a defense that, like Justin believes, like Justin mentioned with the Packers, that's proven to be really good against the pass. How effective will OBJ be? When you look at a team like even the Panthers, who have had one of the best secondaries in the league this season, who just shut down the Arizona Cardinals, although they didn't have DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray. Like, when you look at all these other passing defenses, I don't know exactly how effective OBJ will be. Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be getting a lot of targets as the season progresses, especially in the playoffs as well. Does he put him over the top? No, because there are elite passing offenses like the Packers have, like the Cowboys have, like Tampa has when healthy. The Cardinals, when Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins there, still has a very elite pass. If OBJ was a running back, absolutely, this puts him over the top because there aren't a lot of elite rushing attacks in the NFC. There are a lot of elite passing attacks in the NFC, and I don't know if adding OBJ to this passing attack makes that big of a difference.
What about you, Steve? Do you think Odell Beckham Jr.'s addition puts LA as the clear favorites to win the Super Bowl? No.
Not anymore. I mean, again, I'm kind of with Dwayne here. I feel like when Robert Woods, prior to his, unfortunate ACL tear, he definitely did. And on top of that, I mean, Von Miller, to a team that already led the league in sacks, at least prior to Week 10. I mean, that just wasn't even fair. I mean, Von Miller, you already have, obviously the best defensive player in football, and Aaron Donald. You have, I forgot his name. I'm kind of butchering his name, but who's it? Oh, Leonard Floyd.
Jalen Ramsey and Leonard Floyd.
Well, Jalen Ramsey. I can't forget him. I meant to talk about what was it? Leonard Floyd. Yeah, Leonard Floyd, who recently signed that 4-year, $64 million extension. I mean, he's living up to that contract. When he first signed it, I was just like, he's definitely just a byproduct of Aaron Donald being there, but he's shown to be a little bit more than just that this year. And so I thought that Von Miller was kind of the move that put them over the top. Odell, I still have faith in Odell. I still love watching Odell play, but he hasn't eclipsed 1,100 yards since 2016. That was 5 years ago. And I understand Odell's dad put out a video of all the times Baker Mayfield didn't throw to him when he was open. But what if someone were to put out a video of all of his drops? I'm pretty sure that'd be a pretty lengthy, video as well. That video of Odell not catching passes despite being wide open was 10 to 11, 12, maybe 13 minutes long. He didn't have as many drops, but that video I can almost assuredly guarantee you would probably be about 5, 6, maybe 7 minutes long. I mean, I saw a lot of situations, a lot of scenarios, a lot of games, a lot of plays, a lot of catchable balls. He just outright just dropped. And so, yes, he's still an elite talent. Yes, he's still so electrifying. Yes, he's still box office, but let's also add some of the things that we've seen in the last couple of years. He's also injury prone. He's also he's always been somewhat of a diva. When the ball isn't being thrown in his direction, I mean, how is he going to respond to that? Yes, he's in LA. Yes, he's under the bright lights, but with the loss of Robert Woods, I don't know if that really does anything. Is he even better than Robert Woods at this point in their careers? I don't know. And for us to even have that conversation is not an indictment on Robert Woods, but we just known Odell to be so much better. And so if Odell is the one stepping in from Robert Woods and taking his place, and we don't even know if he's the best player, I can't say that Odell is going to be the guy that puts the team over the top. I just can't. Von Miller, yes, I talked about him a little bit, but who knows? Maybe he starts to show signs of it. I don't know. I mean, he was excellent in Denver prior to being traded, so that's really speculation. But I just don't know if Odell's even better than Robert Woods. And so to answer the question, gotta say no.
I won't go much further and extend this unnecessarily, other than to say I agree with y'all. On the same point as if Woods was still playing, as y'all said, it's unfortunate that he's out for the rest of the year. I would say not only would you obviously have 3 top-tier wide receivers, or at least a 3-headed monster, kind of like what Dallas has over there, but it would fit with Odell because, as I've come to learn, no other team in the league runs as many 3 wide receiver sets as the Rams do. So it would not be a situation where you have to change much to add Odell in. And all I'll say in addition is, unlike Baker Mayfield, who needs play structure, who needs to go through his progressions and need to know this and that, and this receiver needs to be here at this point in time. Matthew Stafford is not that guy. Matthew Stafford can go beyond plays. Matthew Stafford, as we all can see, can create offense for his own self. He understands. He has arm talent to create off schedule. So I think this is a better fit. But without Robert Woods, it's like basically swapping one in for the other. So the same way how I felt about the Rams last week and the week before, it's the same way I'll feel about them with OBJ. But again, this entire show has proven that I don't know much about football. So you want to add something before I go?
Yeah, if I may add, I think another underrated dynamic is the fact that Robert Woods is a very, very, very good run blocker for being a wide receiver. And with Odell Beckham, I'd see a wide receiver who's going to want to set up blocks for his running backs. I just don't see it. The desire isn't there. I haven't seen the same passion. I know he's been in Cleveland, but he's nowhere near the run blocker that Robert Woods is. He's even as physical as Robert Woods is when it comes to blocking for his running backs. And I know Dwayne touched on it. The Rams don't have an elite rushing attack. Well, you had an efficient, a balanced rushing attack with Robert Woods, and now you take him out and you bring in a guy who doesn't really have much of an impact in that aspect. Maybe their ground game gets worse, and then maybe if he's not as talented as Robert Woods, maybe their pass game even takes a step back. Who knows? What if he can't stay healthy? Now they're without Odell and Robert Woods. When was the last time he played a full 16-game season? I mean, there's way too many question marks. I mean, if they're to win the Super Bowl, if he's to go on a run and start putting up, all pro numbers, I'll shut up. But, there's a lot of questions that are left to be answered. And I'm going to wait. I say that Odell is going to go back to being this difference maker that he was 5 years ago?
Yeah. I feel you the same way. So as we close out here now, it would be remiss of me not to mention that a certain Cam Newton returned to the team that drafted him number 1 overall in 2011. And would you know it? The first 2 touches he had all went for touchdowns. So, Dwayne, I know you are a huge Sam Darnold guy, but we'll talk about Sam Darnold another day. What does Cam Newton's return mean for the Carolina Panthers?
Well, when it was announced that Cam Newton was returning to the Carolina Panthers, I made a very quick episode about how this was a business move and how this was a look towards the playoffs. And then on Saturday, when I had a guru on the show, we went live on a Saturday night special. I said all the same things. I was a little hesitant though, because I kept saying that really the playoff push for the Panthers won't start until after this week, because I had chalked this up as a loss for the Cardinals. For the Panthers, I just didn't foresee this happening. Well, the Panthers have just hung 34 on the Arizona Cardinals, which puts them now 7th in the NFC playoff picture right now. And their remaining schedule is Washington, who we've all acknowledged isn't that good. Miami, who we all know isn't that good. Atlanta, who we all know isn't that good. And they've already beaten Buffalo, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, who won't be this good, who they've already beaten, and then Tampa Bay again. This is what are they, 6-? They're 5-5 now. So what you're asking me is, can this football team win 4 of their next 7 games and make the playoffs? Yeah. The Panthers can win 4 of their next 7 games and make the playoffs. They're going to win 4 of their next 7 games in the playoffs, because the Saints are going to disappear because there's still no Jameis Winston. The Falcons are too inconsistent. And, Minnesota's Minnesota. They still 2 games against Green Bay and 2 games against Chicago to deal with, and a game against Los Angeles. Their schedule is not that nice. It's not going to be that nice for them. So, yeah, Cam Newton's back. It's going to be a feel-good story, and he'll lead the team back to the playoffs.
You feel the same way, Steezy, or do you think it's too little, too late for Cam to have a serious effect in Carolina?
The exact same way as Dwayne feels. I'm actually taking it, a step further and say that I think that by bringing in Cam Newton, even at this point in the season, he's the best quarterback they've had all year. And you couple that with, with the mind of a Matt Rule, you couple that with the mind or with the defense that they've displayed. Stephon Gilmore's finally, starting to reacclimate himself to that secondary. Let's keep in mind, he's only been there for a couple of weeks. So he's only been playing a couple of weeks. And so not only just bringing in Cam Newton, giving them the best quarterback they've had all season long, I just saw like a complete revitalization, in that Carolina atmosphere. I mean, you saw just how I know Arizona didn't have Kyler Murray or DeAndre Hopkins, but to just come in on the road and do what they did, 34-13 in Arizona. I mean, we saw Arizona look very confident without Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins in the victory the week prior. And so for them to completely just fall apart, I mean, I know it's kind of on them for not having their best players, but we got to give Cam Newton and the Panthers credit. I mean, they've been, showing flashes all year long. We've just kind of worried about, can Christian McCaffrey stay healthy? Can Sam Darnold, continue to, can he step up when C-Mac isn't there? And obviously that question has been answered. And so I just feel like not only is the team better at quarterback, there's just this aura, there's just this revitalization, there's this new energy. There's this swag now in the locker room that kind of complements everything that they already had. That top 10 defense, a competent head coach who knows what he's doing. One of the game's best all-around running backs in Christian McCaffrey. They have a dynamic duo at wide receiver and DJ Moore. I guess Robbie Anderson's been okay, but Terrace Marshall, the rookie, he's shown some flashes. I like this move. I love this move. I actually think that Carolina does grab one of those last spots along with my Seattle Seahawks. And who knows? The NFL, like we always say, is any given Sunday. In the playoffs, it's not like the NBA. It's one game. And so it's not necessarily always the best team or the most talented team that wins. It's always going to be who has the best day. And so, Carolina with Cam Newton, they have some of the ingredients over there. Who knows? But I definitely see them making the playoffs, and I can see them making some noise in the playoffs.
It's a very boring show because I have to agree with you. Like, immediately you saw what his presence does for the team. Like, whether he's on the field or not. And there was this shot of him leading a huddle or a meeting on his sideline, and everyone is just looking at him. Like, everyone stopped and talking as Cam, or stop and just listening as Cam is talking. And you heard it out of New England. You've heard it prior Panthers teams. They're saying that Cam is just a leader and people gravitate towards this. And you saw it. And then on the football field, again, the 2 touches just proves this guy is a threat to score in goal-to-goal situations. And it gives the offense that added element that obviously, Sam Darnold and his backup just couldn't give them. And now we are being told that Matt Rule has essentially made Cam the starter for this week going forward. I tricked Dwayne into this one, though, because I told Dwayne we wouldn't be talking about Sam Darnold. But no, I couldn't do it. You are right, Steezy. The acquisition of Cam Newton actually gives them a viable player at the quarterback spot. Because I knew that Dwayne and everyone, early on success was showing me, you see what Sam Darnold is, and he's good. And nope, it's not good. Before the injury, before he got, knocked out of these games, is 11 interceptions. 11 interceptions and a QBR of 35.4, which is 28th in the league that has 30 or 32 teams. He's 28th in QBR. Not even completing 60% of his passes. Having Cam Newton here actually gives you a guy who's not going to turn over the football, who knows how to lead a team to win. And I'm with you all guys. I'm not going to guarantee they make the playoffs, but they have a fighting shot now that they have Cam Newton. They're the 7th seed. And they have, with the schedule that Dwayne said that they have, the remaining schedule, I can see them squeaking into the playoffs simply because now they actually have a quarterback under center. Like, Sam Darnold's not going to do it. His backup wasn't going to do it. I mean, granted, Cam Newton was one of the only available quarterbacks out there, but he's a veteran leader, a guy who's not going to turn over the football, a guy who knows how to win games and who has been not only to the playoffs before, but he's actually been to the Super Bowl, has been an MVP. I don't expect him to be that quarterback, but he's not going to turn over the ball at least.
Wait a second.
So
wait a second.
Oh, yeah,
No.
jump in.
Wait a second. I need to make something crystal clear. Okay. I've said it like a couple of times. Let's put this in the context, because here's what Justin's going to do. Justin's going to tell you that Sam Darnold's only completed less than 60%, 59.5%, by the way, which is half a percentage point less than 60, but it's less than 60, so I'll give it to him. He's got 7 touchdowns. And he's going to do this thing. Let's put this into context. First of all, Justin, if you're going to quote me, let's quote me correctly here. What did I tell you? I told you that when Sam Darnold has a running back, Sam Darnold's a good quarterback. I said that. That's what I said. Sam Darnold hasn't had a running back since week 3. He hasn't. So if you look at what Sam Darnold has done with all of his weapons at his disposal, let's look at what Sam Darnold's done. Beat the Jets, beat the Saints, beat the Texans, almost beat the Cowboys. He completed 68, 67, and 66% of his passes in those games. Threw for a combined 5 touchdowns and 3 interceptions in those games, and they were 3-1 in those games. Now, I get it. They played the Eagles and the Vikings and the Giants and all these teams and without Christian McCaffrey, and they lost. But I am steadfast on my point that when Sam Darnold has a reliable running game, he's very good in the past. And we saw it in the first 4 games of the season. I am not going to let you bully me on my first show back. And I'm having some technical difficulties, so I don't even know if the reactions I'm seeing right now are up to date with what I'm saying, because I just don't know, because my whole computer's frozen. If I can hear everything. What you're not going to do is bully me into a corner like you do all the time. I'm not going to stand for it. My mommy taught me when I was a little boy that you stand up to bullies. I'm standing up to you right now. You are not going to lie to these beautiful people on YouTube. Like I said, I never said Sam Darnold was a world beater. I never said Sam Darnold was going to be an MVP. All I said was Sam Darnold is going to lead this team to the playoffs. And when this team is healthy, this team was a playoff team. They were 3-1. You lose your best player. That's what happened. I said Sam Darnold was going to be the best player on this football team. What I did say on the very first time I came on this show all those months ago was that there's hope for Sam Darnold in Carolina, and there's hope for Carolina in Sam Darnold. And there is. And we saw in the first 4 weeks of the season. Then people realized, oh, yeah, there's no Christian McCaffrey. We don't know who this backup guy is, so this running game is not going to be prolific. Yeah, we can hunker down on the pass, and that's what Philadelphia did. That's what Minnesota did. That's what New York did. That's what Atlanta did. That's what New England. That's what New England did. You just sat here earlier at the top of the show and said that New England has a fantastic pass defense. Why would they not hunker down on the pass when your best player who is like isn't there? You are not going to lie to these people tonight. I won't let you do it.
The truth I will tell you. Those losses you called, only one of those teams is actually good and has a winning record, and that's New England. You called a lot of bad football teams right there.
And the Carolina Panthers have historically been a bad football team without Christian McCaffrey. Listen, Justin, we're not doing this tonight. Today's a happy day. Look, today's a happy day. I'm back. Steezy is back from Paradise on Earth, looking better than ever. Right, you got the $1 million smile on. You all know to get into it live on YouTube, but you all know why I'm. We're not doing this. We know that historically, when Christian McCaffrey isn't available for the Carolina Panthers, this team isn't good. It wouldn't matter who the quarterback is. It doesn't matter if it's Sam Darnold, Teddy Bridgewater, Cam Newton. Doesn't matter who it is. When Christian McCaffrey's not there, this team sucks. This team has sucked without Christian McCaffrey. Sam Darnold hasn't been playing that well, but it's been because defenses know there's no running game. Let's hunker down on the pass. You know this, Justin. You know this.
No, because Sam Darnold apologists always find excuses for poor play, whether it's let's blame his head coach in New York. Let's blame that he has no Christian.
We're not going to pretend like Adam Gase should have been the head coach for the New York Jets, Justin. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that.
But he's had interceptions in USC. He's had interceptions under Sam Gase, and he's turned over the ball yet again. But we'll leave
Justin,
it there.
This is what happens. Okay, this season, this is what happens. Sam Darnold has gotten injured, and now Justin gets the crap on him. Baker Mayfield has blamed all of his issues on Odell Beckham Jr. Now you get the crap on Baker. The only guy I had this season that was doing good was Jameis Winston, and he messed around and tore his ace. So I got nothing. I have no more ammo left to come on this show. The only thing me and Justin can agree on is that Aaron Rodgers is a good quarterback. I think that's about it. Because every time Justin's going to bring me on this show, it's going to be to bully me. So I don't know. I don't know. But I just don't think, I don't like that you brought me here under false pretenses. You said we weren't going to be talking about Sam Darnold, and then here you go at the end of the show. You want to get me all riled up. You did this for ratings. That's what you did this for. You did this for ratings.
I'm learning from Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith. But guys,
shame on you.
Dwayne and I are very good friends. I'm going to message me. We're going to laugh about this. So before we're going to let Dwayne plug his show, we're not letting him plug Sam Darnold anymore. So before we get out there, tell the lovely people how to find you and what you got coming up next.
On Instagram at GTP Marcus, Twitter under the same handle, and TikTok, and obviously on YouTube at Go Talk with Marcus. Live show this week on Wednesday. I've just decided that Justin won't be there because he's going to try to bully me on my show. And as much as Justin can bully me on his show, I'd be damned if he's going to bully me on mine. He's going to bully me on this though. Season 2 of the Go Talk podcast is on the way. I've been saying that for a long time, and I've just been trying to get some things going. It's always a pleasure, though, seriously, to come on the show, whether it's to be bullied or to be a bully, or to get riled up or whatever the case is. It's always a pleasure to come on the show. I love working with these guys, Neil, Justin, Steezy. Also, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Marsha, but Marsha's just as great. So I love coming on the show.
He does. He really does. Steezy, it's been too long, just like Dwayne. So please tell the lovely people how to find your content and what you have coming up next.
Real fast, speaking of Marsha, why is it every time I'm on, she's not on? And then when I'm not on, she's on?
Well, I'll explain to you, but she may, like, when it's NFL content, I am the host. And then outside of that, then she hosts. If that's, yeah.
I see. Yeah, I mean, like Dwayne said, I mean, shoot, it's been unfortunate that, I haven't had the chance to work with her, but I mean, just like Dwayne also said, I mean, I know she's wonderful. She's good at what she does. And so, I'm eventually looking forward to that day, or I'm looking forward to that eventual day. That being said, I keep saying this, but like Dwayne said, always a pleasure. I love doing this. And like I said, it's great to be back. I want to work harder than ever. I want to kind of get back into it and close out 2021 on a great note, on a powerful note. And I want to enter 2022 and, and aim for even bigger things. And so, just to be a part of this and be able to do this with you guys, talking about the sports that we love on a regular basis, it's something I don't take for granted. It's truly a blessing. And so thanks for the opportunity each and every single week. And if you want to find me, you definitely got to find my boys first. It's just in. Shout out Neil, of course, and then Go Talk Podcast with Marcus, all social media platforms. Be sure to show these guys some love, man. Help them out. Help me out at Steezy A Smith, all socials, primarily on YouTube. But like I always say, I'm always, trying to get back on Twitter, on Instagram, trying to use those more. And pretty soon I'll be launching a live show, maybe 1 or 2. But I'm definitely trying to get that set up within the next week or so, and expect these guys on there. So that's it for me. A lot of love, and I'm out.
That's why I love bringing these guys on the show, always plugging it. But again, you know how to find us. Same bat time, same bat channel, every single 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central. You can look for our content. #ThisJustIn on Instagram. And again, we will be back right here every Monday night, right before Monday Night Football. Marcus of the Go Talk Podcast with Marcus. And also for Steezy A. Smith, I am the Justin of This Justin. So, thank you so much for watching, and come back on Monday. Good night.
I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. If God's with me, ain't no matter. You're just the same. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes? Shit.